Hello, my name is Sean Daugherty. This is a news presentation for Social Work 4210. I'm doing my presentation on Iryna Zarutska's murder. This Ukrainian woman was murdered in cold blood. Iryna was on her way home from work at a pizzeria, taking the local bus, when she was brutally murdered by a black schizophrenic man who had a long history of crime and mental illness. He had 14 prior arrests that dealt with armed robbery, felony larceny, breaking and entering, and shoplifting. He spent 5 years in prison for robbery with a deadly weapon. His most recent arrest, back in January of this past year, a Democrat judge released this ill person back onto the streets with only requiring a promise to return to his court hearing in the future. DeCarlos Brown Jr. is this perpetrator. His own mother had made a statement to the police that he was ill and needed to be put behind bars. Is this systemic racism? This event is stirring uproar on soft-on-crime measures, supposedly resulting from changes that are made to address systemic racism, such as the George Floyd movement. The over-policing of black Americans is a concern for sure, as racial profiling seems to be the norm. But sometimes it goes the other way, where black people who are longtime criminals are granted graces for crimes they did not regret and have a history of reoffense. We cannot stand by measures that keep criminals on our streets, especially without them having any sort of penalty when they clearly don't feel bad about what they did. More on Iryna. Iryna was a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee fleeing her own home country in hopes of finding some peace. She found that here until this fatal event. It is sad that she would have come from a literal war zone only to end up murdered in a country that is supposedly at peace. I think large-scale crime means we are not at peace, and that there needs to be more measures taken to secure our country. Donald Trump, our current president, has been getting tough on crime before this event even happened, and it only further shows that the proof of such measures are necessary if we want to have a great country. People come from all around the world to the United States for all sorts of reasons, and sometimes being here in the States is more dangerous than their home country. And that is sad. There was a dispute between Charlie Kirk and Van Jones. Charlie Kirk, rest in peace, had made statements that DeCarlos Brown Jr. made his killing on the basis of Iryna was a white woman. Van Jones claims that this concept was completely unfounded and racist. If you see further footage of the train incident, DeCarlo was saying, I got that white girl, twice while carrying his bloody weapon, then saying she called him an N-word. Meanwhile, she wasn't even engaged with him. She was on her phone minding her own business. This clearly shows that race was in the mind of the perpetrator, regardless of if it was the entire motive. Van Jones seems to have been underinformed. Charlie Kirk has made statements that soft-on-crime measures are a terrible way to make policy. I paraphrase him. We need our criminals locked away, not roaming the streets. Charlie Kirk was recently assassinated himself on September 10th, 2025, but his legacy will live on. Mental illness, a pandemic? This specific event was the result of a man who had violent and aggressive tendencies, suffering from mental illness. That clearly was not being rightfully treated. People like this should be locked up in an asylum or someplace meant to deal with the severely mentally ill. Simply because he was a black man, he was given leniency, which resulted in this beautiful young woman's tragic death. It is mentioned that mental health services are being cut, and some of the talk hosts at ABC News say that this is the real reason for the soft-on-crime problem, as I would call it. In the video, the liberal media's horrible take on the murder of Iryna Zarutska, one of the hosts states that the mentally ill often don't think that they are mentally ill. Van Jones played it off saying hurt people, and I should have a comma there, sorry. hurt people, but this clearly was a disturbed person. But we do not know that he was hurting at all. The liberal media's horrible take on the murder of Iryna Zarutska. At the end of this video, a man is, and I paraphrase in saying that this man is a monster. That this is not insanity. It is an outright manifestation of being evil. He is looking to take advantage of someone weaker than him in a way where the counter threat isn't there at all, coming from behind with a knife on a woman who is distracted, and he flees the scene to avoid the recompense for his crime. Clearly he is disturbed, but also he knows enough to be an abuser. Yes, what he did is crazy, but he clearly had some understanding of what he was doing, even if he felt nothing of the hurt it would cause. He seems cold-blooded and a menace to society. He should be behind bars for the rest of his life, with no chance of bail or early release. The murder of Iryna Zarutska, Charlie Kirk versus Van Jones. Charlie Kirk says that there have been statements about racial discrimination against blacks perpetrated by whites, but the data shows that the exact opposite is far more common, with examples such as this event. The CNN News host points out that Charlie Kirk's stance is very antagonistic towards the George Floyd movement, and that would be a tragic thing to undermine. I can acknowledge that George Floyd's case is a tragedy, and that this racist event should never have happened, especially by someone who's meant to uphold our laws. I believe that the entirety of this case is a testament to the soft on crime movement, which are a disgrace to our nation. White House addresses the fatal stabbing of Ukrainian woman Iryna Zarutska on North Carolina train. In this video, there is a White House press briefing done by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt on Iryna's murder. President Trump and the entire White House sends their prayers to those affected, family, friends, and peers of Iryna. This case is supposedly underreported due to the politicization of the circumstances of the tragedy, the perpetrator being mentally ill, black, attacking a peaceful and innocent white woman seeking refuge. And this was brought to the public's eye when President Trump deemed it significant and publicized it. The perpetrator is described as a savage career criminal. Iryna had a promising new beginning here in the United States, all taken away much too soon. If only this man was behind bars from his previous offenses, this young woman would still be alive today. Press Secretary says, how crazy is it that a career criminal, someone who by definition repeatedly breaks the law, to just sign a written promise to come back at another day? Virtual signaling? Is it virtuous to release a criminal who has broken the law 14 times in the past, just based on the color of his skin or the political affiliation of the judge? Absolutely not, but this is what is being called into question. Is releasing a repeat offender justified? I think we all agreed no. We all agree that no, that is not justified. We should not be protecting people who are doing wrong over and over again. Charlie Kirk used to stand for a merit-based society, and if your merit shows you are underqualified or to be a menace, there should be recompense. An innocent woman was killed on August 22nd, 2025, because a judge let someone off scot-free. 9 investigates the killing of Iryna Zarutska. The talker states we need safer public transport. This could have been anyone. Iryna was working towards a driver's license. She recently had bought a car and was soon to take her driver's test. She calls for armed guards on public transit. She claims while they may not be able to put an officer on every street, they should be able to put one on every public transit. Iryna personally took care of senior citizens, animals, her neighbors, thanked her and her family for having Iryna in their life. She used to babysit their children. She was killed while texting her boyfriend that she would be home soon. There was a passenger friendly enough to take his own shirt off to help stop the bleeding of Iryna's neck. Unfortunately, it was in vain. The newscaster says that DeCarlos thought Iryna was reading his mind as his motive. They add that DeCarlos has been arrested for communicating threats and assaulting a woman in the past. Further in the video, they have some people claiming that this murder couldn't have been prevented. What a ridiculous claim that is. 9 investigates continued. President Trump states about Carlos, he's evil people, and if we don't handle it, we won't have a country. They are charging Carlos with terrorist acts or acts of violence against a mass transit system. While this is a heinous crime, I doubt that it is due directly from terrorism. The result of the crime is terror for sure, but the criminal was not organizing to cause terror from what I could tell. They state that it was a train, not a bus. And this is my references. Alright, hopefully that's enough.